Are you ready for World War III?
No one in their right mind would use nuclear weapons against Russia. If such an attack was detected, a number of Russian missiles would appear in the air that not a single enemy would have a chance of survival.
We have never been closer to World War III than we are today. A global conflict between nuclear-armed powers would mean death and destruction on a scale unmatched in human history. It would be nuclear Armageddon.
The U.S., Canadian, and European alliance is ready for a direct fight with Russia.
And they fire ballistic missiles into Israel, and then the U.S. retaliates with a full-scale decapitation nuclear strike on Iran, because that's what could happen. And then Russia retaliates and fires missiles at our aircraft carrier, and then it's on, and then it's nuclear war, guys. Okay, then it's World War III.
But now we have a big danger from North Korea, we have a big danger from Iran, we have a big danger from Russia. We have a potential of World War III.
It's issued a grim warning for a possible World War III following Russia's announcement to deploy nuclear weapons in Belarus.
This could be the beginning stages of World War III, and this could be the build-up to nuclear war, okay? The situation in the Middle East is escalating day by day, and Russia will protect Iran if the U.S. attacks Iran.
We're in the most dangerous period in really human history since the end of the Cold War.
They're bumbling around with, I think, again, sleepwalking us into World War III.
So we're seeing escalation and counter-escalation. That's the road to World War III.
When we're at a point, we're heading towards World War III, and we...
Tactical nuclear weapons, they also constitute a large percentage of arsenals of the nuclear weapon states.
It doesn't have to start deliberately. It can start accidentally, incrementally. But the longer this fighting goes on and this war goes on, the greater the chance of either by error or by design, nuclear war beginning.
So we're on the verge of nuclear war, guys, okay? We're on the verge, okay? I'm not even talking about just World War III. It's gonna be nuclear, okay? There will not be a World War III. It's just gonna go straight to nuclear because Russia and China cannot fight us conventionally and win, and they know that, so it's just gonna go right to nuclear.
As various nations escalate their nuclear threats, the fear of a nuclear attack is becoming more of a reality. It's safe to say we're in the midst of an incredibly dangerous moment where the use of nuclear weapons increasingly seems more likely to happen. A nuclear exchange between the US and Russia would be the end of the world as we know it. It would be devastating, to say the least. But how much devastation would there be? That's what we're going to discuss. I will be sharing some of the knowledge I acquired while serving in the military about this particular topic. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here's the short answer. Explosions, massive loss of life, loss of electronics, radiation, and the nuclear winter that will ensue. But let's get into the long answer. If a nuclear attack were headed towards the US, residents would have fewer than 30 minutes to prepare. You would likely receive a wireless emergency alert on your smartphone. The message would give you a heads up that missiles were on the way and to seek shelter immediately. So, what else would they do to give you a heads up? Well, the emergency alert system will also send out an alert message across all types of televisions and radio broadcasts, including satellite, cable, and wireless systems. In addition to that, the president just might decide to send out a presidential alert to cell phones nationwide. If Russia deployed an intercontinental ballistic missile towards the US, citizens would have maybe 30 minutes or less to find shelter. So let's imagine you're at the job, or stuck in traffic after leaving the job, or even out for a jog, or perhaps at the park. Either way, you would have just 30 minutes to prepare, and that is assuming you were immediately warned of the attack in the first place. But despite that, some weapons, such as those deployed by an enemy submarine, could have an even shorter delivery time than the aforementioned 30 minutes. For example, If an enemy submarine deployed a weapon from international waters just off the East Coast, the residents in places like Massachusetts, New Jersey, or New York might have only 10 to 15 minutes to prepare. At a moment's notice, and with such little time to spare, those with children would not even have time to hurry and get them from school. It makes no difference as to who launches the first nuke. When one side launches nuclear missiles, the other side detects them and retaliates before impact. The initial strikes will render electronics useless, and the power grid will be fried. This is done by creating an electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, an EMP of tens of thousands of volts per meter. So in other words, that means lights out for you. No smartphones, no tablets. You would not even have the ability to make phone calls, to check on the ones you care about. Once the bomb hits, it will generate a fireball about as hot as the core of the sun. After that, the infamous radioactive mushroom cloud would ensue. And I'm sure you all have seen pictures of these mushroom clouds at some point. So by now, you're probably wondering, what would happen to the residents within the immediate vicinity of this blast? Well, they will simply be vaporized by the intense explosions. Those that are further away will be temporarily blinded. The fireball expansion then causes a blast wave that damages buildings and crushes nearby ones. Other places, such as the UK for example, have nuclear capabilities and are mandated by NATO's Article 5 to defend the US in such a scenario. That said, they would be a target for an enemy strike as well. Large population centers are engulfed by firestorms. Hurricane-level gusts of wind fan the flames. This causes any combustible material to ignite. The heat is so intense it melts glass and even some types of metal. Roads are destroyed, with asphalt being reduced to a burning hot liquid. But if you thought, oh, that sounds bad, the worst has yet to come. This is yet another consequence of a nuclear war. Let's keep in mind that a nuclear explosion throws up massive amounts of dust and smoke. For example, a large nuclear detonation at ground level would throw up about 1 million tons of dust. All of this black smoke and soot floats up into the stratosphere, far above any rain clouds that would otherwise wash away and clear out the smoke. And high altitude jet streams are so fast that it will only require a few days for the smoke to spread across the northern hemisphere. So basically, the smoke and soot would act as a barrier and reflect the sunlight back into space. As a result, this would prevent a large portion of sunlight as well as the sun's heat from reaching the Earth's surface. I'm sure you can figure out what happens next. That's right, it will become very dark and very cold. Temperatures around the globe would drop tremendously. Places like Florida would become freezing cold, even during the summertime when it's usually the most hot. Many other places that are usually warm will start to feel like they're in an Arctic winter. It would take months for the sunlight to get back to near normal, and this change in temperature would create a food shortage on a massive scale, which brings us to the next point. The massive reduction in sunlight and temperature would quickly kill crops and other plant and animal life, and the remaining humans that survived the nuclear exchange would be on the fast track to malnutrition and disease on a massive scale. It is estimated that over 5 billion people could starve to death. This includes 99% of those in the US, Europe, and China. With crops decimated and the livestock that usually become food for humans now eliminated, it is estimated that 75% of the world's population will starve to death. The extreme annihilation caused by a nuke cannot be limited to military targets. Those that have no affiliation with the military will make up the majority of casualties from a nuclear attack, and the ones within range that manage to survive will suffer long-term health implications from the nuclear blast and the radiation it produces. Nuclear weapons produce ionizing radiation, which kills or sickens whoever is exposed to it. Along with contaminating the environment, the long-term health consequences includes cancer and genetic damage. Even those in neighboring cities or countries will suffer from the impact of a nuclear detonation. Of course, we only scratched the surface, and a lot more than we discussed will come out of this scenario. There is no telling how many humans will survive a nuclear exchange. With the amount of devastation that would result, there will be no winners on either side. Nuclear war is likely to begin from a gradual escalation. It's not a matter of if it happens, but a matter of when it happens. And when it does, will you be ready?
Through weakness and incompetence, Joe Biden has brought us to the brink of World War III. We're at the brink of World War III, just in case anybody doesn't know it.
This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.